So we are going to move straight to the next conversation for today. And this conversation is on youth life in a complex social context. Youth life in a complex social context. Very interesting topic there. And moderating this session for us is Grace Gonwe, who is program manager at the Duke of Edington's International Award in Zambia. Grace, if we have you, please, we have to.
Hello, good afternoon from Zambia. My name is Grace Gondwe. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, Grace.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And like I said, my name is Grace Gondwe and I am from Zambia. I'm currently working as program manager at an organization called the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. And we work with young people ages 14 to 24, providing them with opportunities for personal development and non-formal learning, and just helping them to become what we call world ready. And that's our tagline. So we want to help young people to be well-rounded individuals who are ready, to contribute to the community, whether it's through philanthropic work, entrepreneurial work, in the corporate world, and so on. And so I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful to the APN network for, first of all, holding this summit, providing an opportunity for young people to make their voices heard and contribute to the conversation and give their ideas to solving the problems that we're being faced with. And also for inviting me to facilitate today's panel discussion. We have some amazing panelists who will be joining us for today's conversation. If they are present here, I will ask that they are spotlighted and if they can turn their cameras on so that we can get started with our conversation. Our panelists are David Ntambia, Pearl Lawrence, and Ange Umatani. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Awesome, great. I see David is here. Ansel is here as well. Brother Ange, are you here? And Pearl Lawrence, if you're here.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I hope I'm saying your name right. It's Ange?
It is Ange.
Okay.
Ange.
All right.
Ange. Yes.
Okay, Ange. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing that.
It's all right.
Great. Thank you so much. Pearl, you're welcome. I think we can get started with introductions. Ange, if you'd like to go first.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ange Umutani. Like you said, I am the regional coordinator of the ESC Youth Ambassadors. I'm very glad to be here and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Pearl, would you like to go next?
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Pearl Lawrence and I'm a youth and women rights activist from Lesotho. I'm also the Vice Chairperson of the International Youth Council of Lesotho, as well as the President of Transform Lesotho Initiative. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Pearl. David, are you there? If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, I am there. Hey, Grace, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's good to have you here.
My name is David Handier. I am from Kigali, Rwanda, and I head Aspired Bit Rwanda, the youth-based organization, and I'm very happy to be here. I look forward to a fruitful discussion and, good questions from our audience. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you so much. So the panel that we are on today, we will be having a conversation around being a young person in a complex social context, and obviously taking the perspective of philanthropy and how young people can take the lead in philanthropy, given the challenges that are in our social context. So the first question that I'll ask is, as a panelist doing the work that you do, and I know we're all doing great work in our various contexts, can you just comment on, the context as young people, ages 18 to 35? What is it like being a young person, and just navigating the challenges that are there? There's climate change, we're living in a COVID pandemic right now. Just give a brief overview of what it's like being a young person, in the world now, and how you are going about navigating the different challenges that young people are faced with. Pearl, would you like to go first? Pearl, are you there? Okay. David, do you mind going first?
Yeah, thank you very much, Grace. I think there are a number of challenges that we are facing as the youth and more or less also the young ones. Currently, we are seeing an increase in the teenage pregnancy that is, shifting from the sub-Saharan region. We're seeing an increase from the numbers that were there before COVID and the numbers that are reflected today. So that's also a challenge that teenage pregnancy is, is overshooting, and we need to investigate whether it's a cause of, being stagnant at home because of COVID-19 or something else. So we are not yet clear whether it is the effect of COVID-19, though we sing the song that COVID-19 could have been one of the causes to a rise. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the challenges that is existing amongst the youth. And we're also seeing a number of them also dropping out of school, an incremental, there has been a very good increase also with students not returning to school. But that one we could also attribute it to COVID-19 because people have been locked into their homes for a number of days and were unable to work. So poverty also raised, and so getting school fees for these kids became a challenge, and some of them dropped out. Partly, they are also dropping out because of the teenage pregnancy. Some have given birth, and so they cannot get back to school until maybe their kids are, are raised to a higher age. So those are some of the challenges that are across. Yeah, a climate issue, it's actually going across. We are seeing, we have been having rain season here, but hardly do we see it. So I think that's a global challenge that is not specifically facing the young people, but it's also facing the entire population. Yeah. Thank you. I probably would stop there and also give floor to my fellow speakers. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I was having a bit of trouble with my connection.
No, it's okay. We were just discussing what it's like to be a young person in the challenging context that we're in right now. So you can go ahead and give your comment.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Currently, through my work, as a young person, there's some sort of oppression that comes with it. But also being a young Black person just doubles the kind of oppression that is, directly impacting us. And then there's a factor of being a woman. Now you're a young Black woman who faces oppression every single day in all aspects of life. It's not just socially, it's all around. Currently, I'm into governance and youth politics, and we look at the kind of work that we do every day, and there's just a lot of bottlenecks that stifle youth participation in governance. In the area of political participation, like in a third of countries, eligibility for national parliament, just starts from the age of 25 years or older. And then in that context, you find that 1.65% of parliamentarians around the world are in their 20s. And, you also have 11.89% who are in their 30s. So just participation has become quite a challenge, because I think with our governance and with our system here in Lesotho, we found that youth are having difficulty participating in these issues. And as much as we have youth that are politically active through political movements, especially in universities, but then you find that there's often that most of our youth are often disillusioned with political leadership, as well as political institutions, having themselves excluded actually from policy development. So you find that most of our youth, they're just given pretty much low-hanging fruits, just to say, okay, this is just a taste of what it can feel like to be in politics, but this is where it ends. Going forward, you find so many difficulties to find yourself involved in that system. So most of our youth currently are mostly concerned about inclusion. Everyone wants to be included in decision making. We cry or we have grievances on equality, and maybe these two, inclusion and equality, need to be viewed as the ultimate aim for development, especially through structural change and policy making as instruments for achieving it. Yes, I think I went a bit further.
Yes, thank you so much. Really, the conversation around representation and inclusion is a very, very big one. And I think it's one that cuts across, young people have different causes, that they are affiliated with. Young people are fighting for different issues, but the challenge of inclusion is one that cuts across. And so I think that that's very, very relevant. Ange, are you there? Would you like to just make a comment on this part as well?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Grace, and everyone. I think actually David and Pearl really try to exhaust everything around these challenges youth are really facing. But to talk more, I would like to add in some stuff that they didn't really, not like they did not talk about it, but also to emphasize on them. David talked more about the poverty, the unemployment. A lot of youth now, they can have the access to education, but when it comes to see what kind of education are we accessing, the quality of that education is questionable. And again, when you see how many people are going out after that education, how many of them are actually getting employed? How many of them are getting the jobs? So you see the gap is still high. Like, we do not have the equal number. The ratio is still high. We have a lot of people going out, a lot of youth completing their education, but when you look into how many are having jobs, it's still somehow questionable. Again, when I talk more about the inclusion that Pearl talked about, we still have the youth inclusion being questionable as well. The youth are being laid behind, like we do not get involved in a lot of stuff. We still have to go into finding the solutions, but when it comes to implementing, when it comes to sit together and see what are the decisions should be made for youth, we're still lacking in those decision-making positions and what is actually going to be there. And again, as I am actually a healthcare provider, I would like to talk more about how youth are now facing a very big challenge of mental health, and the mental health caused by a lot of things that has been going on. I will talk about the COVID-19 that we have been facing worldwide, and also talk more about how social media has been a very good tool actually to promote how we are being mentally unhealthy. So I was trying to read, more into reading of what people are talking about this, and then I saw one of the youth saying how we are pressured or we are pushed to be on the highlights reels of the other youth. Like, if I am having this, and then another youth is actually.
Have lost Ange?
Yes, please. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please carry on.
All right, thank you. So I was saying how as youth, we are still facing that mentally challenge on how we are pressured to achieve the highlight reel of our fellow youth. Like, for example, I was looking on how someone gave an example, like if I went to a vacation and then somebody is like, I should also have this kind of a vacation, then it's actually pushing the people to live on the standards that they do not have. So the mental unhealth comes out when we are using those social media on how it's not supposed to be used. So the challenge, I think we should use the tool of social media as an effective communication tool or collaboration, or also use it as a way of giving ideas, sharing ideas, and also a way of collaborating or even branding some of what we are doing. So I think the challenges are there for youth, which comes into unemployment, the unqualified education, and also, if I can talk more on how the mental health, on how socially we are relating to what we are meeting in our everyday life. So I think that's what I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think you've spoken to some really critical issues that I think come across again, especially in the African context. Unemployment, especially, is a challenge that is in every country in Africa. I think it's something that young people are crying about and saying, look, we want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to make a living. We want to have livelihoods. And unfortunately, opportunities seem to be limited for that. And also just the conversation around mental health. I think it's new, I think here in Zambia, it's not something that has been spoken about as much, but I think over the last 3 or so years, it's becoming a more prevalent conversation, and people are becoming more and more aware, about how they can proactively look after their well-being, not just physically, but mentally as well. I think something that was alluded to in the previous panel discussion is how the power of Africa is in the numbers that we have, especially for us as young people. And if any of these panel discussions are anything to go by, young people in Africa are being proactive about finding solutions. Young people in Africa are being proactive, on the entrepreneurial front, starting businesses, running businesses, but also on the social and development front, starting non-profit organizations, working to give solutions to challenges that are being faced by our communities. And so I want to hear just from you guys as panelists around, based on your lived experiences, how do you think we can go about globally, but also in our country context? What can be done, to highlight the work that young people are doing, the philanthropic work that young people are doing, and show that this is an alternative that can be used, as a tool for development, as a tool for solving challenges? How can the philanthropy that young people are doing, the work that young people are doing, the social entrepreneurship that young people are doing, how can it be highlighted as a tool, as an alternative way, to aid and forward the development agenda? Maybe we can start with David again.
Thank you very much, Grace, once again. I think one of it is very important that we create spaces for young people to showcase what they're doing, because majority of them are doing very great work, but they are not, they are not seen. So how much from the government side, from the, the strong private sector side, come together to say, shall we create a platform that exposes the good thing that these young people are doing? There are those helping the rural people, there are those creating solutions, but they're not funded. Even these solutions, they're very good, but majority of them are not funded. So how do we create a very good space for the young people to showcase the good ideas they have, the good prototypes that have been developed, and then we could also seek to fund these prototypes and to fund these ideas. We have seen that during this COVID, majority of young people have decided to volunteer their time and their skills. When I look at maybe the case of Rwanda, majority of the youth volunteers, the volunteers that have been spearheading, a sensitization program during COVID, please keep the mask on, keep the social distancing, were mainly the youth. So they have decided to volunteer their time and their little skill, to help the community overcome the challenge of COVID. But now, how do we support them? I think, yes, as much as they have given their time, as much as they have given their little skills, but you also need to, to motivate them. So what incentives are we putting there for them to keep up the skills they are having? It's also something that we should ask our governments. It's something that we should think of. If my friend does that and probably I'm aware of better than them, how am I willing to support them? You might support them in terms of also providing transport or anything of that sort. So I think the main thing that that the government should do, and also other people, including us, it is creating a space for people to showcase the ideas they have, and then we can support the ideas that we have known and we have seen. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, David. We have on the panel discussion as well, Asimwe. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think we missed out on her when we were doing introductions. So I think maybe you can just join and give your take on this question that we asked, and also just introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Grace. My name is Alena Simwe, and I work with CIPSOS Africa. It's a philanthropy advisory firm in Uganda. And I think I would like to start from the point where you asked what life is being a young person. And for me, when I think of a term young person or youth, I'm thinking about space and opportunity, space to create and innovate. However, just like Pearl mentioned, I think it must have been Pearl, I would like to mention that the term youth has heavily been associated with masculinity. So it's harder in these times being a youth, being a young woman, being a youth who is a woman. So the opportunity and space around is literally for fighting for, but then also you have to reassert and reaffirm yourself more, being a woman in such a competitive space and world. You also asked a question about how can young people's work be, highlighted and represented. At CIPSOS Africa, we document stories of young givers, and we hope that through documenting the stories of young givers, we can be able to shed more light around how young people in Uganda and in Africa practice philanthropy or mobilize their communities to give, and how they respond to community challenges. So storytelling is one of the ways through which we can highlight young people's practices and attitudes and responses in philanthropy. Yeah. Over to you, Grace.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think I agree with you, especially on the storytelling bit. Stories are very powerful. Stories are very powerful in getting people to join us, when we have a cause. If there's something that you're working towards, if there's a powerful story, it's more likely that people will join in when they feel like they can relate with the stories. So thank you so very much for the contribution, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the work that you're doing. Ange, if you're there.
All right. Thank you so much. On what should be done, I think we need to address this or look this on a level of the influence. As youth, we are the big number of the world's population. And when it comes on what should be done, I think we should take a lead on the change that we need to see. So I think what should be done is that youth needs to be more creative, and also they need to be the monitoring of the future and the present. What does this mean? I mean that we are the big number, and also we should actually come together and see what should we do. I love the way other people are addressing this as the people being accountable to what needs to be done, because we are actually, as I say, the big number living in this world. Again, also when what my previous speakers panelists said, we need space, and which I think it should be addressed on a policy level. We need that there should be policies which are accommodating youth and which is actually giving a space to all youth, inclusive to women and other key populations. So I guess more of what I can say is that we need a very accommodating policies, and also as youth, we need to be accountable to the change that we need to see and monitoring the future and the present that we have. So thank you.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you very much. Thank you very much. But more to that as well. Yes, as we stipulate out that we need to create safe spaces for them, but we should also fight to have those spaces.
Sorry, David, if we can just hear from Pearl first. I'm sorry. If we can just hear from
thank you so
Pearl
much.
first.
You know, as I was listening to the panelists, we talked about giving youth more platforms and you know, to some extent, I have a bit of an issue with that because we've had so many organizations that have been, you know, asking for funding to different development partners, you know, in the name of youth, in the name of saying, no, we give platforms to youth, we give, you know, maybe we need to have more support for youth-led organizations. And, you know, in the context of my country, I think the answer to all of this is maybe having independent youth-led organizations, such as having an independent National Youth Council. Because sometimes you find that most of our issues and concerns as youth can be, you know, just tackled or pretty much solved through, you know, independent bodies that through governance, for instance. You know, I'm mostly going to be referring to governance because maybe that's my area of expertise in a way. But also in order to respond to, you know, having, you know, we could look at issues around maybe documenting our work as youth, because you find that half the time we have nothing to refer back to. You know, last year around the 6th of November, the youth of Lesotho had a march, a protest march for youth unemployment and gender-based violence. You know, we pretty much were just focusing on those issues. And then we realized, hey, we haven't really been documenting the work that we've been doing. So just documenting on the work that you're doing gives you some sort of influence, but also something to reflect back on. You know, there's something about history and, you know, just having a footprint, you know, so documentation is very important to receive recognition, be it globally, because now we have social media to start publicizing the kind of work that we do. But more on that, I think it's also meaningful to have youth participation, you know, and even leadership that require young people, and, you know, young people-led organizations have opportunities, but also going together with capacities and maybe benefit from maybe an enabling environment and relevant evidence-based programs and policies at all levels. You know, it's just a matter of realizing young people's right to participate and maybe being included in democratic processes and practices, which is also quite vital to ensure that the achievement of maybe internationally agreed development goals and to refresh, you know, the global development agenda of youth. Because currently, as we're looking at youth involved in philanthropy is basically just, you know, about teaching the importance of giving and serving. Sometimes you don't even need to be in higher positions. Sometimes you need to learn to lead from the bottom. And leading from the bottom means you need to start groundwork and having a footprint that allows you to be able to have maybe a much bigger influence. So it all goes to networking as well. Networking like what we're having now. You know, by just being on this platform, I now have access to different countries, to different youth in different countries, and maybe even other more experienced leaders in philanthropy. And that just allows and gives us the opportunity to start the work as small as possible and having it grow to something bigger and more influential. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, I think we have some good inputs there. I hope David is, David, I hope you haven't lost your train of thought with the comment you wanted to give. You can just come on now.
Oh, thank you very much, Grace. It was just addition of what additional to what my fellow speakers have actually shared with us. Yeah, as much as we are also calling for a safe space for the youth, in expressing and sharing what they have, documenting what they do. But it's also very important and very imperative that as much as we're also calling for this and as we're demanding for safe spaces, we should also fight to get into those spaces. Much of what we do, we hardly communicate, and yet we have tools in our hands. So how much do we communicate what we do? People will hardly get to know us if we do not communicate. So as much as we are demanding for safe spaces, for spaces to show up what we're doing, but we should also push harder, to show what we are doing. How much do we communicate? How much are we fighting for these spaces? At least let us fight and we fail to get them. But when they have also shown, a vigor and a zeal to get into these spaces. So how much are we prepared? Are we prepared to meet the opportunities? Are we chasing the opportunities that are available? Or we are just reluctant and singing a song of, can we have safe space to say this? Can we have a safe space to show this? So that's an addition I wanted to make. Thank you.
I don't know if we're allowed to have a dialogue, but I just wanted to say this is why I was advocating to have youth-led organizations or youth-led platforms, because you find that we're given these platforms to be said, no, these are safe platforms, but you find that youth are not even robustly involved in those spaces. They're just given, it's more of a show to say, no, these are ambassadors of this, but they're not actively involved in decision making, or maybe just the execution of the work. So like you said, I strongly advocate for that, and youth need to be, I think, more hands-on and start to be able to own the platforms that are said to be safe platforms for youth.
Awesome. Thank you for that input, Pearl. I think I like very much the direction that the conversation is taking. And I can see that we have young people who are very, very passionate, about the causes for us, ourselves as young people. I have, I think, one or two more questions. And the next question that I want to ask is around sustainability. And just all these things and put them in these spaces and so on. But a lot of the times we see, even philanthropic work starting, but then dying along the way because of a lack of sustainability. And I think this is one of the challenges that the development sector and philanthropic work, one of the challenges is as we are looking to have more
Grace, I guess we are missing you. We lost you.
Okay, I was saying that even as we are having, we are looking to have more young people be involved with philanthropic work and social causes. How can we as young people, contribute to ensuring that there is sustainability in these philanthropic work, in these social causes? I don't know who would like to go first.
I could go first, Grace. And I want to start.
Is that Alan?
Yeah, thank you very much, Grace. And I would like to start from the point of the evidence that has really been put out there. I know even the first panel had a conversation around how youth constitute the majority in several African countries across the continent. And of course, several critics have argued that without active youth participation and involvement, then Africa and African countries can never achieve continental rebirth in terms of development. And because of this projection, that also means that various national projects and programs cannot cause change within the societies that we live in. If we're talking about decolonizing the knowledge that we have received over time, we cannot succeed without commitment of young people. So heavy involvement of young people is required at this level. And for any country really to go into the future, the youth must play a big part in shaping the social and political and economic agendas. Again, it goes back to the role of young people in shaping the narrative around the social development, the political involvement, and the economic sustainability. Again, the first panel really talked about how young people can sustainably engage in economic development. Whether young people really hold the space and the power in terms of decision making is another conversation, but certainly youth involvement is critical for the growth, to happen at any level. So as a continent, really, we should be speaking to how young people can be empowered for the enhancement of their future and sustainability of the countries within this continent. And we should also be looking at how we can ensure a socially just education system that enriches and prepares the youth for really a worthy future. And we need to be also exploring ways we can redress the past. I know one of the panelists mentioned about our past history and our historical imbalances that still future, again, in youth programming, in youth practices of philanthropy, in youth economic ventures. Historical imbalances still future. Young people have been infantilized in several spaces. We have countries with the Youth Commission being embedded within the national youth, social service sector, ministries of gender. So you find children, women. So, and the narrative is that youth issues are being prioritized, and my answer there will be no. You can't combine women issues, young children issues with youth issues, and then you think that you will create a balanced society that redresses all the issues that concern either category. Young people with disabilities. And because we require really an empowered youth, would definitely have the power really to shape the narratives and ideals of the power, and change the narrative of how we have the narrative of how society. Sorry?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so I want to mention that whereas we need to upload the works that several countries have really tried to do to address various initiatives in the attempt to address young people's issues and possibly to enhance opportunities for young people. It's evident that most countries have national youth policies or youth development fund initiatives, all put in place in an attempt to address the youth unemployment gap, which I think David mentioned about the skills development gap and, the gap within youth participation and engagement. So how sustainable then can we make all these, innovations of young people? I think young people, because young people are really a major source for development, and often they are acting, or they are actors or key actors as change agents within our communities through economic expansion and innovation. So their imagination and ideals and energy and the vision that young people come with is really essential for continuous development of any society. So young people then need to be given an opportunity to really realize their potential, and sustainability is through the initiatives that have already been put in place, because I wouldn't really, we can create new initiatives as countries, as a continent, to redress or address the gap within young people, but also we need to go back and look at the gaps that appear within the initiatives that have been created. The youth funds, for example, Uganda has a youth fund. It is a good approach to addressing the youth unemployment and skills gap, but the implementation and the corruption within the context that we live in has really made a very good initiative bad at that. So sustainability is from the point of looking at the programs we have really put in place and look at how best we can, address the youth gap, but also involve young people more in making the decisions of what is right for them, so that our initiatives are not prescriptive, prescribed for them to do, to engage, and allow young people to be able to make the decisions of what is ideal and what is best for them in that sense.
Thank you so much, Alan. There's a lot of meat in what you said, and so many solutions. There are so many programs that are. Okay. I was saying I liked what you said in saying that there are already a lot of programs that are in place, a lot of solutions that are already in place. There are a lot of organizations that are working, and the way to ensure that there's sustainability is to ensure that young people, take the driver's seat in these solutions and in these organizations. Thank you so much, Alan. Ange, Pearl, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Yes, thank you, Grace, again. I think we need also to look sustainability in terms of working together as youth, because I believe that we stand when we go up together and we fall when we are divided. So I guess the sustainability should always look into me bringing my skill, you bringing your skill, and then we work together to come up with a solution. And again, I think youth should always be ready for always being keen to provide the solution faster. I loved the way when we were in a pandemic, trying to find out the solution of what we can do. A lot of industries or youth had to stood up and then make maybe some surgical masks, sanitizers, everything to fight this pandemic. It was really, really nice to see youth taking part of providing the solution, and also trying to see how they can help each other and raise each other. I have heard about one of my friends who's creating jobs, and then the person tried to look into how to provide jobs to a lot of youth to work remotely during the pandemic. So that's the spirit we need to have as youth. If I have an opportunity, I have to share it with my youth, and I also have to share it with my colleagues around me, or even far. And also the sustainability, I guess it has to be addressed, or we need to achieve the sustainability when we go on to see what are the social norms which are still hindering the youth, and what are the community misconceptions that are still there. I guess Par and Alan talked more about the culture and where we came from in past, and we still have those social norms which are hindering youth, which are actually still challenging the youth. So we need to look into more on what are those challenges we still have as a youth, and then address them from the root, and then also come up with a solution. So yeah, those are my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ange. I'm reminded of the saying, I don't know if it's an African one or it's just a Zambian one, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with somebody. Just speaks to the power of synergies and the power of teamwork and working together. And just, I agree with you very much so that there is something to be taken for sustainability from working together towards a common goal. Thank you so much. David, are you there?
Yes, Grace, I'm there. I think with the fact of sustainability, we also need to lay a very good foundation for ourselves as the youth, to have that sustainability, perception. And the key thing that are needed for us to sustain whatever our our leaders or our elders have put in place, and we sharpen the future that we want to see. One of it is investment in mentorship. So are we mentored by the right people? So it's very important that we get the right mentorship that, that puts us forward to yearn to achieve the Africa we want. So right mentorship is very key. We should be mentored by right person and right leadership as well. Two, it is also very paramount that we invest in education. I think my friend, one of my colleagues say that it is very imperative that we have right skills. So investing in education is very key. Are we empowered with the right skills, with the right knowledge? Do we have what it takes for us to confront, the challenges that we are facing? Do we have the right knowledge and the right skills to interpret and overcome and create solutions to the challenges and disparities that we are facing along the way? That is very key. So until we have that, then we are able and ready to move the world where we want it to be. So to second, I would say mentorship is very paramount, and investing in the right skills for our right youth is also very paramount. Yeah, we talked about internet connectivity and the likes, but I think that comes later. We need the basics, and one of the basics would be right education and right mentorship. Thank you. Grace, are you there?
Yes, I am. I think I lost you a bit at the end there. All right, thank you. But I think I got the gist of what you were saying, and I think especially the bit about mentorship.
Mentorship and the right skill set.
Sincere apologies, I'm experiencing some connectivity issues. But thank you so much for your comment, David. Pearl, if you're there, please do weigh in, even as we will be looking to answer a few questions as we wrap up this panel discussion.
Okay, thank you
Pearl?
so much for that opportunity. I think, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I was saying that, the panelists have pretty much covered most of the indicators, pertaining to sustainability. But we also, okay, thank you, hi. There's also issues around accountability and transparency around sustainability. It's nice to have youth involved, but we need to start having youth that are actually knowledgeable and capacitated to be in youth-led, but also in these positions. Because what we tend to do is we just want youth representation, but are the youth that we have in these spaces eligible? Are they capable of even handling those positions? One of our panelists here mentioned about mentorship and getting the right mentorship and skills that are transferred throughout, maybe like from the previous leaders trying to continue the work. And I think which is pretty much a great suggestion there. We need sustainability in terms of the social context, economic context as well. So I think involvement now is pretty much one to capacitate us with the skill set. You learn now, and you get to, as you're in the field, you get to learn more about what happens, what to look out for. Just being able to forecast on problems and also maybe even solutions to those problems. But yes, I think they pretty much covered most of the indicators of sustainability, and I strongly suggest that they need to be hand in hand with issues of accountability and transparency throughout. and, you know, just being able to network and finding linkages around countries and saying, you know, maybe if we come in solidarity as youth of Africa, or maybe as a certain region, you know, you come together and you start working towards, you know, some of the grievances that, or maybe just similar or common issues that youth have, you know, just being able to communicate on these issues and trying to share solutions together, you know, and maybe even come up with programs or projects that can actually tackle or be able to, you know, just be able to answer and work on these issues, maybe simultaneously, or, you know, I don't know, you know, the entire globe is working on those SDGs. And if maybe as youth, we could also come together and say, no, this is what we want, and this is what we want to achieve together. Maybe youth in Tanzania, Zambia, just come together and we start working on those goals that we have set out for ourselves, working together on them, and also just advising each other. Maybe we might have different, you know, experiences, but just knowing that we're working in this together just gives us some sort of leverage, but also a great experience to know that you're learning while you grow. So yes, that's what I think.
Grace, please, can you unmute?
Thank you. So I was saying that I'm so excited to have been able to moderate this particular discussion. I will hand over to the MC, considering that there are no questions in the chat box. Thank you so very much for joining us, and please stay logged in for the rest of the session.
Great, there are actually questions. I see a question around. Yeah.
Okay, do you mind taking that question?
Oh,
yes, Grace, there's a question here for you.
Yeah, I'll just read it out and maybe I can think. One says philanthropy is also about individual giving. So what do we need to do to start tapping into those individuals that want to give and organize giving efforts as youth to have an impact? So one thing that I think about after reading this question is the infrastructure of philanthropy in our respective countries. Well, some of us, our infrastructure is not as absolute as it could be, but it's also not favorable for young people. Maybe, you know, in the first session, young people were sharing the initiatives that they are doing, the social enterprise approach and model they are taking. But some communities are not as flexible and favorable for young people, social initiatives to thrive. The taxes are too high. If you start an organization, then, you know, the statutory obligations are so many, then you cannot even register. If you're caught operating and mobilizing, you know, without following, for example, in Uganda, there is an act on, what is it? I've even forgotten, on social gatherings, on things like that. So you need to have followed a certain procedure to be able to operate as an organized group, or maybe if you're collecting a certain amount, then the tax man is on your neck. So the infrastructure is not supportive and as accommodative to allow young people's initiatives to really grow and thrive. So individual givers, yes, there is an opportunity to still give as an individual. There are opportunities to give as a collective, and so maybe we need to be addressing and interrogating the infrastructure that facilitates and enables young people to organize, but also to, you know, to give and mobilize and address, you know, yeah, someone mentioned it, it's the public order management, you know, act that really, you know, for you to organize anything, you have to have reported yourself, but then you have to have followed a certain, guidelines in place, which at times is not favorable and, flexible for young people. So the infrastructure really that surrounds philanthropy and how it is done, how it is given, because if you are an organized group registered and you're receiving a certain amount of people out of the country or even within, then an interrogation will start to happen. And I mean, one of the panelists mentioned an element of accountability. Yes, we need to be accountable as young people. If people are giving you money, you need to be able to account and, tell the public on how you have spent it. It could be a community drive or anything, but with all that in place, the infrastructure within which we operate must be flexible and accommodative for young people to be able to organize, but also to give. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your comment, Alan. Unfortunately, this is where our time comes to an end. Thank you so much once again to all of the panelists. It's been so great having this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll join us for the rest of the conference today and tomorrow. And thank you so much to everybody.